HR, pointing great companies to the future of successful HR on the web at outsideinhrng.com. And from Wiser Advisory, Africa's leading financial advisory, training and outsourcing services firm on the web at wiseradvisory.com. And from Nextier, the leading public sector advisory firm focused on agriculture, power, and petroleum on the web at nextierlimited.com. And from Data Century Limited. And from Total Ascent, empowering individuals and organizations to achieve their educational and career goals on the web at total-ascent.com. And from Brave Little Heroes, helping kids discover their inner awesome on the web at bravelittleheroes.com. To support Impact Africa, please visit our website, impactafricaonline.com. Support for Impact Africa.
Why is he starting all over again?
Are you ready?
Yeah. Welcome to Impact Africa. Good morning, America. Good afternoon, Africa. It's a pleasure to be here again today and to have a very good friend of mine, a fellow member of DON, Kirstie, Kwarteng. Kirstie, welcome to Impact Africa.
Thank you.
And I have joining us from London, Emma Orefuwa. Emma, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, fantastic. You're welcome to Impact Africa. It's a pleasure to have both of you here today.
Thank you for having us.
And, I want to tell people a little bit about, Kirstie and Emma before, asking you about the wonderful work that you're doing. And Kirstie is a consultant with Human Security Group, and she focuses on Africa, migration and development, and very nice big issues. And she has worked directly with refugee settlement programs. And, her master's thesis is one of the things that really fascinated me about your profile. It was titled The Remittance Intentions of Second-Generation Ghanaian Americans. Mm-hmm. And Emma is the engagement and fundraising manager at the African Foundation for Development, AFFORD, and she oversees the UK end of AFFORD Business Center project. And she's very much engaged in Africans in diaspora. And I just found out that Emma is part Nigerian and part from Seychelles. And I was wondering if you could just extend the Seychelles nationality to me.
Well, I always get asked this question. Seychelles is a small group of islands just off the east coast of Africa. And it's kind of in the Indian Ocean, not far from Madagascar and Mauritius, and it's a French-speaking nation.
So how can I be a citizen of Seychelles?
It's very difficult to be a citizen of Seychelles. The population is only 86,000, and they're very strict about who they allow citizenship to.
Oh, wow. But they allow the Nigerian men to get there somehow, so they can come here. 86,000.
You've been doing your research then.
Well, let me start from you, Kirstie. What did you find when you did a study of the remittance intentions of second-generation Ghanaian Americans?
Okay, well, first let me clarify what I mean by remittance intentions. I've just always been curious to know if people like myself, I was born and raised in the United States to two Ghanaian immigrant parents, and I know remittances are a very large part of the Ghanaian economy. And I wanted to know if people like myself, are we going to keep sending remittances after, after the first generation is no longer here? And if not, what are the implications for Ghana? And so I found that unless people have a very strong emotional connection to their relatives in Ghana, they most likely are not going to send monetary remittances, but they would be more inclined to send what we call social remittances, more skills transfer, going back themselves and giving up their time.
And that's interesting. Now I see why, this Africa Gives thing. But Emma, let me ask you a little bit about your background, because you also did some research on the giving habits of second-generation diaspora Africans. That's something that you guys have in common. What did you find? Did you find anything different?
Well, my findings echoed what Kirstie has just said, in that while there is a significant proportion of young African diasporans giving back to their country of heritage, the younger generation are more interested in more sustainable forms of development. So we're more inclined to give our time and skills than financial remittances.
Interesting. So, which brings me to, and I want to go back to you again, Emma, on Skype. The African Foundation for Development. What is AFFORD?
Okay, AFFORD is an African-led diaspora development organization, and it was set up 20 years ago. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and it was formed by a group of Africans who felt marginalized from the development debate. So while all the sort of mainstream NGOs were talking about dealing with some of Africa's issues, we never really saw prominent, high-profile African people giving their perspective on how to tackle the issues. So AFFORD is an African diaspora-led organisation. We're quite small, but we've had quite an impact over the 20 years that we've been in existence.
And, Kirstie, do you agree about the presence and the impact of Africans in this whole development discussion?
Oh, absolutely. What's the expression, nothing for us without us? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to have a development process for a group of people and not include them in it. Like, we know what we need better than anyone else, so we need to be in it.
But is it because we don't have the money that we're not being included in the discussion? Or do we even not have the money? Is that correct?
I wouldn't say it's not an issue of money, but perhaps access, and I think that's why organizations like AFFORD or even DAWN, the Diaspora African Women's Network, exist to create spaces for ourselves that don't exist.
And, Emma, you talked about the impact that you all have made. Can you tell me a little bit, what are some of the things that you think are the biggest splashes that you've made in the pond so far?
Well, AFFORD has done a lot of work within the sort of policy arena, and we've really fought hard to get diaspora included in the sort of international development debate and to get us recognised as significant contributors to African development. Going back to your point about financial giving, World Bank figures stated in 2011 that Africans in the diaspora actually give $60 billion worth of $60 billion towards Africa, which overshadows international aid by some 3.5 times. So it's not that we don't have the finances and that we're not giving, but we give in slightly different ways, which is more informal, direct giving to relations and those within our close networks. So what we're doing is we're trying to develop structured pathways to pull that giving and to maximize that giving.
I agree with you. And I also think I've done a show on this before sometime last year about the remittances from Africans in the diaspora outstripping the foreign direct aid. And I think that number is even understated because there is right. I'm going home, somebody sends me money to give to a relative. But I think in itself, that's a challenge because when the foreign governments are given, they all have a way of, putting the money together and making a big impact. But for us, the challenge as Africans is that I send money to Nigeria, to my community, and then somebody else sends money to somebody else for food. How are we going to be able to, put this together to make a sustainable and big impact?
Well, there are lots of different vehicles, but one of the areas that we're looking into is diaspora bonds and sort of long-term investment. You're right in that, a lot of the giving is sort of one-to-one or giving towards family members, and it's usually for consumption, things or things like healthcare and education. Whereas what we feel is that if we can pull that giving together, then we can have an impact. And it's also about, we're giving money to our relatives, but also putting conditionalities on that giving to ensure that the money is really going towards sustainable development initiatives. And rather than sort of giving to the individual, people can club together and give towards communities rather than individuals that have a long-term impact on some of these issues. So there are lots of different vehicles that we're looking into. The AFFORD Business Centre, which I'm coordinating, is really supporting direct investment by putting on the table some of the opportunities that there are in Africa towards giving, so that we can give to grow the economy through the creation of jobs, because we feel that job creation is the only way that Africa can sort of, tackle some of these huge problems.
And you raised a very valid point, which I want to take up with you, Kirstie. About, giving to communities, does it not mean that we have to have some sort of unified agenda? Because if you, for example, if a Ford gets a program in Guinea, and would you, Kirstie, as a second generation Ghanaian American, be willing to invest in that? Or how will we set the agenda for the way this money is being used?
I guess for me personally, I think it makes the most sense for each diaspora group to focus on their country initially. But at the same time, we are one continent and there are a lot of similar issues in each country. So I also think if people want to just give back to a country on the continent that they have a close affinity with, or they just feel like, even if it's not my country specifically, it's still on the continent and I want to help them move the continent forward, then they should be free to do that as well.
And I think that's great, but I just feel like we just have this this unity in Africa that is so worrying that even if I were to take Nigeria, for instance, if we wanted to do something for Nigeria, maybe the Nigerians in the diaspora wanted to do something, there will be so much debate about what project, what part of Nigeria, because then we begin to slice and dice according to religion, according to tribe, it's almost as if, nothing's going to work. So almost I feel like sometimes maybe we need to have diaspora conventions to kind of you wanted to say something, Emma?
Sorry. I think you're right. I mean, from the research that I conducted, one of the major barriers to diaspora giving towards charitable initiatives is a lack of trust.
Yes.
And it's not that there isn't a willingness to give. There is this willingness to give, but people want to be sure that their money is going directly to the beneficiary. There's a lot of skepticism about people creaming off money and corruption. And I think that's where organizations like a Ford can play a good role, being an intermediary, carrying out that due diligence and presenting, trustworthy projects to invest in. And I think missions like the one that we're doing to Ghana provide people with that experience to directly see the impact that's being made on the ground. So I think there are different ways that we can tackle that. But I think lack of trust is a major issue that we're trying to tackle. And I think that diaspora getting involved is definitely one way to mitigate that.
I think that's an excellent point. And I think even with diaspora getting involved, we will need to still consider setting up some sort of agenda and some sort of organization. But I want to, Emma's made a very good point about Africa Gives and the mission to Ghana. So I want to ask you, Kirstie, a little bit about that mission. What is Africa Gives? What is this mission to Ghana about?
Okay, so the Africa Gives program is a program of Ford, and it focused specifically on next generation youth in the African youth in the diaspora, with special emphasis on ages 18 to 35. But you don't have to be between those ages to participate in an Africa Gives
18
program.
to 35.
35, yes, but you don't have to. It's not solely for those ages. Though.
I don't want to disclose my age right now, but I think I'm too young.
Too young.
I'm too young. So.
So as Emma said, we do give differently from our parents or other first-generation immigrants. So it's important for us to have structured pathways for us to give back to the continent in ways that make sense to us. And so for this volunteering mission, it's not volunteering in the traditional sense, like going to orphanages and like reading to children or digging wells. We want to do something that is sustainable and something that will have a lasting impact. So what we'll be doing is meeting with different civil society organizations, different NGOs, different government organizations, trying to build sustainable partnerships with these institutions that are capable of creating change and already doing work on the ground. We don't want to come in as a diasporans who know everything, because that's a big problem. People come in, they think that we're trying to take over. We think we because we're from the West or from wherever that we know better, and like that's not the case. Like this is our homeland. We both want to see our homeland, our continent succeed. So we're coming in as like joint partners. We want this to be like a joint scoping exercise. What are the issues on the ground? Like what do people need on the ground, and how can we as diasporans help people on the ground get what they need?
And you know, and I definitely, I think you made a very valid point, which is to get to the continent and see ourselves as partners and not as bosses, because that's one of the things that we as Africans have a problem with when we have expats come, you know, in. It looks like, oh, they're coming to take over. So we cannot afford to lay those kind of foundations. I think, you know, you're absolutely right. Before I take a break and, you know, we wrap this up, Emma, I want to ask you, you know, what should somebody expect? What kind of feelings should I expect to have after I take part in this mission? Because I know you had a mission to Nigeria last year. So if somebody is planning to sign up for the one to Ghana, what should they feel like, you know, they're going to give back?
I think to see the Africa Gives missions as it's a two-way process. It's not just about the volunteers that are going to Africa sort of giving back, which is an important part of the mission, but it's also about what they get out of the experience. And a lot of it's the opportunity for people to see Ghana and other African countries through a unique lens, to see the realities of some of the issues on the continent. You can expect cultural immersion and sort of unique access to some high-profile individuals within the development arena. The volunteers that came to Nigeria last year had a fantastic experience, even though they were all Nigerian diaspora. And they had been to Nigeria previously.
It's Nigeria. You have to have a fantastic experience. Are you kidding me?
Of course. It afforded them the opportunity to see a different part of Nigeria. So we went to Osun State. I think a lot of people typically go to Lagos.
Yes.
And to see some of the positive things that are going on the ground. I mean, I think within the diaspora, we hear a lot of negative stories. And for every negative story, there are 100 positive stories. And for me, being of Nigerian descent and having the opportunity to go to Nigeria last year with Africa Gives, it really sort of gave me a sense of pride. It also allowed me to fill in the gaps in regards to Yoruba culture and history. And it was also a platform for me to make great connections. So I feel that these missions are a unique way of engaging diaspora and a way of providing that unique entry point, because I think it's important to go out there and see what the reality is like, as opposed to just relying on the media, which is heavily skewed.
And, you know, and it's definitely, I agree with you, because I actually was on the call with the president of the African Women Development Fund. And they're based out of Accra. I was on the phone with her this week. Yes. Yeah. And we were both talking about the fact that African stories, that there are only two stories out of Africa. The one we tell ourselves, which is the truth, and the one other people tell, which is skewed, you know, heavily in favor of what is selling. And, you know, this is one thing I'll be talking about very soon, because my next guest is an expert in this African storytelling. But I want to quickly wrap up, and you tell me, if I want to get involved, where do I go? How do I sign up?
You can go to africagives.org. It's africa-gives.org. You can also send an email to me at rpghana@afford-uk.org. And you can also send an email to Emma at afford-uk.org.
And we will send this out on Twitter. So Emma and Kirstie, thank you so much for joining Impact Africa today. We said no quizzes. You know, Kirstie made me swear that there will be no quiz. So yeah, I kept my part of the bargain. Thank you so much. I hope you come back again sometime.
We will. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you're watching Impact Africa, and we'll be right back.
Support for Impact Africa comes from Our Financial Coach, ranked among America's 11 best financial coaches on the web at ourfinancialcoach.com. United 4Kids Foundation, committed to healing the world one child at a time. On the web at united4kidsfoundation.org. Frad Consulting, planning and designing services where you are always in good company. On the web at fradconsulting.com. And from Outside in HR, pointing great companies to the future of successful HR. On the web at outsideinhrng.com. And from Wiser Advisory, Africa's leading financial advisory, training and outsourcing services firm. On the web at wiseradvisory.com. And from Nextier, the leading public sector advisory firm focused on agriculture, power, and petroleum, on the web at nextierlimited.com. And from Data Century Limited. And from Total Ascent, empowering individuals and organizations to achieve their educational and career goals, on the web at total-ascent.com. And from Brave Little Heroes, helping kids discover their inner awesome, on the web at bravelittleheroes.com. To support Impact Africa, please visit our website, impactafricaonline.com. You are listening to Impact Africa. To connect with the program, please call 1-443-499-2755. That's 1-443-499-2755. You may also send an email to info@impactafricaonline.com or tweet @UImpactAfrica. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back to Impact Africa, and I am delighted to welcome Forbes 30 Under 30 VIP, Mark Kaigwa.
I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
And thank you for making time, because I know you're going back to Kenya today. So this is really a very big honor. So tell me a little bit about how you felt about this Forbes 30 Under 30. Because I know I cannot get that honor right now because I'm already, over 30. But, just in case there's a Forbes 60 under 60, maybe I might get there. So tell me.
Your Forbes 30 under 30 with some years of experience.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. The honor's all mine. Really glad to be here and just to be able to contribute to the show, and I'm a fan of the show, and I think it's great to be in front of your viewers and listeners and be able to share a little bit about just my story and what I'm up to. And to start with Forbes, there's it did come as a bit of a surprise to me as well, because I was in a rural part of India and had
rural part of India.
Yeah.
My imagination is like you were on a cow somewhere.
It could have gone there. There were moments it almost got like that. But we did a lot of walking, and I was actually there with I was there on a fellowship organized by Johns Hopkins. And they had taken us out there. So I saw a couple, people who had tried to message me, but they didn't know what my India number was. And then later I think it's through my mom that it's great sometimes to find out things like this through the one person who you want to be the most proud of moments like this. But it was a great acknowledgement and honor and humbling just to see people reflect on a career that has, I'd like to think, one of the few things I say I know is that I don't know.
No, I think you do know. I did some of my research on you, and I've seen you. You've been around. You tell good stories. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what Nendo does. But I almost see you like an African activist. Do you sometimes see yourself that way? Definitely,
yeah. I think activist, advocate, champion, ambassador. Just any opportunity, I think, to represent outside of Africa for me is a blessing and an honor, and to be able to do that consistently and to really to change perceptions and stereotypes where people are like, you live in Africa? Oh, I'm like, not just living in Nairobi. I'm like, it's and that's home. I'm there all the time, and I visited perhaps a city or a country to speak to them, to speak to that audience, to tell them something or to enlighten them on things happening in the continent. My area of expertise is technology and innovation and kind of the media landscape, but there's so much more to be told. I mean, there's young economists and folks like that telling stories as well. Absolutely, but
and Kirstie and I talked a little bit about this before the break. What is the there are good stories out of Africa, but somehow when you hear anything out of Nairobi, you don't hear about Nairobi being the hub of technology. You hear about the mall bombing, El Shabaab getting something. Nigeria, you hear about Boko Haram. Nobody's talking about, what Emma said about the Osun State, the culture. What is the hindrance? What is really hindering the good stories from being told?
Well, I think the way media machinery works now is historically they've always summed it up in this phrase that says, if it bleeds, it leads. And if you look to Africa now, there's you don't have to necessarily look very far to find a potential story that could get violent, or that could kind of play up an old stereotype. So it's almost as though I was at the New York Times I was in New York, and I went to the New York Times, and it was, they have this long corridor. It's amazing. I was with this Nigerian American author of The Bright Continent, Dayo Olopade. And she works at the Times now, and she took me up to this corridor, because I am pretty fascinated with an enterprise like that, and there's a corridor where they have all the Pulitzer prizes they've won, and one of the last ones this year was for a picture from Westgate, and there's been it to be honest, it's an extraordinary photograph, but you have that bittersweet moment of that feeling, but the way I see it is that the honest truth is that those stories will be there. You will have Nairobi now with the challenges it's having around its perception and security or insecurity, and the threat of terror and so on. But it still is, by and large, the same city with the same people, perhaps going about their lives a little differently. But the sun can set a certain way, or there's so much to talk about the city, and like you said, technology should be as and can be as strong a narrative as anything else.
Absolutely. And there was a time one of my colleagues asked me, he said, "Where are you originally from?" I said, "I'm from Nigeria." And he said, "Oh, I bet you feel safe being here." I said, "Where?" He said, "Baltimore." I said, "No, I actually feel safer in Nigeria than in Baltimore." And that's the truth. The truth is that every country, every city, every community has got its bad parts. The only issue is that we just get the light on the bad parts alone, because there's so much. I've interviewed people doing extraordinary work in Nairobi, and which leads me to, what is Nendo? First of all, does it mean something in Swahili?
It does.
What does it mean?
It does. Nendo is the company I founded and run now, and it's from the Swahili word mwenendo, or the plural is mienendo, which means trend or insight. And so, it's kind of divided that. It's now just Nendo, but we're based in Nairobi, and we are a strategy and storytelling consultancy. The way we like to say,
strategy and storytelling consultancy.
Yes.
I'd never heard that until I saw your profile. What does that even mean?
Yeah. And the way we say it is we put in, we just add it at the end, for digital Africa. I think when it comes to people, whether they're sitting in DC and in London, in Beijing, or they're sitting in Johannesburg or Lagos, and you're looking to get out of your respective city to other African markets or territories or states, I find that sometimes executives or marketers or communications folk, or just leaders in organizations, can underestimate the power of technology and social media and the web in these African countries. So you find, for us, what we provide as a service is advisory, and towards the end of the year, even some development work as well, to this effect, that helps anyone looking at Africa get very informed, so whether it's market or business intelligence, just helping them make decisions better. So the strategy side, all we're saying is, if you have decisions to make with a certain number of resources and time, then you want to put yourself in the best position to get the best results. And that's what we do. Storytelling for us is just saying, when people look at Africa, they look like, oh, we're gonna finish this up here and then take it there. And the storytelling part says that you don't just have a passive audience. You have a community. You have people who can be the stories or the storytellers, and involving them and acknowledging their agency in being not just, recipients who you hand out, this one. It's not a one-way street. And Africa's got a lot to say. And that's, for us, it's a big shift to call ourselves that. And we believe, we're going to educate the market as we go, that is how you should look to the continent.
And is there any resistance as you're trying to educate the market?
I find, I wouldn't say resistance. I'd just say it takes time, because, what you'll find is more traditional communications agencies and companies and clients who are used to doing things a certain way. So it takes time for people to come around, but we've got great case studies so far, and we started in October. So it's been a blessing just to, I think, to watch the continent receive us better than we expected, and hope that momentum builds to some great projects.
And I one of the things that I like about what Nendo is doing and what you're doing is it addresses one of my concerns, which is Africa does not talk to Africa. Africa talks to outside Africa. But you want to buy something from Nigeria and you're in Nairobi, it's almost, it's tough. You want to get some information about Sierra Leone and you're in Uganda, it's almost impossible. But if you want to know the next thing about Los Angeles and you're in Nairobi, it's like right there on your smartphone. But you guys you've done some pretty good job connecting, African countries.
I think one of the things for me that's made a world of difference, and I agree with you there, is that social media has actually connected us in a new way. So I challenge people now, because it's easier to follow people just from DC or just in the diaspora or just in a couple different respective places. But there was genuinely a time, and for me it was about 2009, 2010. I had to look so far. So, now I'm connected to people. I mean, from that time, people in Dakar, people in so it's Francophone and Lusophone Africa.
Are you connected to anybody in Seychelles?
Not yet.
Can you work on that for me?
I can look. There's surely someone. This idea of 6 degrees of separation. You
saw me. I tried to pitch
immigration officer somewhere who can.
And I'm Nigerian. We know how to do this stuff. So you just let me, because now I have interviewed someone from Seychelles and I need the citizenship, and she's saying that there are 86,000 people. So since you're connecting people, you should be able to do that. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is social media usage in Africa. You had a social media report. You talked a little bit about this. What did you find?
Right. So for us, part of even that storytelling is to be able to tell the market, well, this is what the future of social media in Africa looks like. And now we have, the great benefit of having, at least, in all of the 4 corners of the continent, you have some very strong bases around which social media takes on its own meaning for that part of Africa. So
what do you mean takes on its own meaning?
I mean, in North Africa, you look to Cairo, you look to Tunis. If you look around what now people call the Arab Spring, which in some ways, sure, it's the Arab Spring, it's the North African Spring. But that's that's semantics.
Yeah.
West Africa.
Some people spring.
But you will learn so much about organizing and revolution. Yeah. Using social media to change the government, the existing regime and so on. I was saying the other day, I don't think there's an election that's happened in the last 4 to 5 years in Africa that social media hasn't played some role. Either people will acknowledge it and say shut it down, or how do we keep these people silent? But you can't. You're getting to the point where you can't not acknowledge that it's there as a leader. And to the extent that a number of African presidents, an increasing number, have Twitter presences now. Whether they tweet themselves or not is really, I guess, a deeper question.
I'm not going to even mention names,
but yeah, I think for West Africa, you have, of course, you have Lagos, and I mean Nigerians online are just they're quite the force to be reckoned with. And I say that also because Kenya's a very combative country when it comes to the web, and so we constantly fight battles with other African countries.
You don't want to see when there's a Nigerian story on Facebook, if there's a link posted, maybe something happened in Abuja, the first thing I do is to read the comments that people are posting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You either get very depressed, or you get very angry, or you get excited. One of you're going to have some sort of extreme emotion.
There's no middle.
There's no middle point. But how come social media, revolution, evolution, everything in Africa, it's not translating to job creation? How can we use this for economic development purposes?
I think there's some great ideas and people asking questions around this, and you're right, it hasn't fully translated.
Yeah.
Now, the benefit is you have a large body of young people who, just because they were, fortunate enough maybe to be in a city or be in a place where there was a cyber cafe or a feature phone that they signed up for this thing called Facebook or Twitter and so on. You have them with a certain set of skills. Some people now will describe it professionally as community management, if you like, that actually could be tapped. And if more businesses seek to go on social media, then you have small, medium enterprises needing a young person with these kinds of skills. Of course, that also assumes that, literacy and so on and access to airtime. But taking that same premise, in Kenya, for example, there's a couple, and they're active in more countries than just Kenya. But there's this phrase that they call impact sourcing, where the typical outsourcing model is historically the way it worked with India in the last, let's say, decade or 15 years is the US shifts a call center from somewhere somewhere outside of Baltimore to Pune in India. And then fills it with 200-300 people, all with the headsets, and they are in US time. So when you call to get help, that's who you're connected to.
Yes, we get that all the time.
now the flip side of that is saying, let's move that call center to Africa. Let's get young people in, and let's not just have it be this very, very straightforward case of outsourcing where there's some very clear things that are happening. Here, it's data entry, which means that now if you're training people on computer skills and giving them this practice, you give the model. There's some Rockefeller grantees or who are all exploring this area. It's how can you add impact, because it's always been a very profit-driven business. The reason they've shifted to India is profit, really.
Yes.
But here, when you say you bring impact into the equation, you're talking about training someone, getting them a certain amount of devices, giving them a certain kind of benefit, allowing them to work at flexible hours, opening it up, putting it in marginalized communities where you go and you connect the community. And the internet has, even according to the World Bank, I believe it's for every 10% increase in high-speed internet connections in a country, it corresponds to a 1.2% increase in GDP. So there's actual numbers behind getting better connectivity, and let's hope that this meeting of profit and purpose at least can be one of the ways.
It can be one sort of intersection.
Right.
You're not going yet because you're going to take part in the Africa 101 quiz. But before we break for that, there was something you taught us at the UN Foundation about how to say hello. And please, I want you to.
So in Swahili, if it's a group, I would ask, I would say hamjambo. So to your viewers and listeners, I would say hamjambo. And they would reply hatujambo.
Hatujambo.
Yes, but because I'm assuming they are single. Folks, each individually watching at the same time, I would say hujambo, which is singular, so it's to you. I would say hujambo, and you said sijambo.
Sijambo. So say it.
So hujambo.
Sijambo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, but please don't go away. We'll be right back with Africa 101.
Impact Africa comes from Our Financial Coach, ranked among America's 11 best financial coaches on the web at ourfinancialcoach.com. United 4 Kids Foundation, committed to healing the world one child at a time. On the web at united4kidsfoundation.org. Frad Consulting, planning and designing services where you are always in good company. On the web at fradconsulting.com. And from Outside in HR, pointing great companies to the future of successful HR. On the web at outsideinhrng.com. And from Wiser Advisory, Africa's leading financial advisory, training and outsourcing services firm. On the web at wiseradvisory.com. And from Nextier, the leading public sector advisory firm focused on agriculture, power, and petroleum. On the web at nextierlimited.com. And from Data Century Limited. And from Total Ascent, empowering individuals and organizations to achieve their educational and career goals. On the web at total-ascent.com. And from Brave Little Heroes, helping kids discover their inner awesome. On the web at bravelittleheroes.com. To support Impact Africa, please visit our website, impactafricaonline.com. You are listening to Impact Africa. To connect with the program, please call 1-443-499-2755. That's 1-443-499-2755. You may also send an email to info@impactafricaonline.com or tweet @UImpactAfrica. Now, back to our show. The Africa 101 segment is sponsored by the African Memory Game, available online at theafricamemorygame.com.
Welcome back to Impact Africa. And before we go to the quiz, I want to say a very big hello to Amida Jemmy, who is watching from Dallas, Texas. Thank you for watching. And some people are trying to cheat in the studio. And I'm not going to allow them. They're saying they're a team, but there's no team here. So my contestants today, I have Miss Izat. Miss Izat, are you there? Is Miss Izat on the phone? Uh-oh. I hope we didn't lose her. Okay. Is Olu on the phone? I hope we didn't lose our phone people. Can you hear us on the phone? We're going to try and fix that. But Mark is also going to be contesting.
I've been a late addition to the...
No, but you're ever ready. You know Africa very well. They can't hear us on the phone, so I'm wondering what the issue is.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear? Okay, Miss Isaac, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so this is the... you're competing against Mark, who is trying to cheat because he's trying to recruit somebody here. You have 20 seconds to answer the question.
Okay.
And you can choose any number between 1 and 12.
Okay.
So Miss Isaac is going first.
Okay. I'll choose 5.
Number 5. Okay. So, Harare, capital of Zimbabwe, used to be known as what? A. Salisbury. B. Harlem.
So what's the last one again?
Harlem.
I'll go with Caleb.
That's wrong. So, I'm going to have Mr. K. Oh, I'm sorry, that was last week's contestant. Olu, please, let's have your question.
I think I would have number 9.
Number 9. Who was the first president of Cameroon? A. Paul Biya. B. Amadou Ahidjo.
Let's see.
You have 20 seconds.
I think I'll go with A.
Paul Biya?
Yes.
No, that's wrong. So, Mark, what number do you want?
Can I get number 7? Lucky
Number 7. That's my lucky number. So let's hope it works for you too.
Let's hope so.
Number 7. Which desert covers approximately 2/3 of Botswana? A. The Sahara Desert. B. The Kalahari Desert.
I'm going to go with B, the Kalahari Desert.
And he has the right answer. So, Miss Isaac and Olu, you have a chance now. Miss Isaac, what number do you want?
I'll go for 1.
Number 1. You probably can't go wrong with number 1. Kisangani is a city of Democratic Republic of Congo, and it was previously known as what? A. Stanleyville. B. Kinshasa.
Kinshasa.
Oh, that is wrong. Well, you still have a shot. So,
Okay.
now, Olu.
Well, I think I'll go with number 3.
Number 3. Even I didn't know this one. And I had to check. Not to scare you. Let's go ahead. So Windhoek is the capital of Namibia. And the word Windhoek means what? A, windy corner. B, strong wind.
Wow. Well, windy corner and strong winds, don't they mean the same thing? Well, it's in the southwest corner of Africa, so I'll go with windy corner.
And that is correct.
All right.
That is correct. So, Mark, your turn.
Okay.
What number do you want?
It seems like we're following an interesting order, so I'll pick number 2. That's 1, 2, and 3 all done.
So the 1, 2, and 3 will be done. Okay. Malabo, the capital city in Equatorial Guinea, was previously known as what? A, Santa Isabel. B, Bissau.
Wow. Oh. Oh, this is such a guess. And I've actually been to Malabo. I feel so embarrassed now. It would be funny if I hadn't been there. Oh, Africa's only Spanish-speaking country. One of the, I guess, but...
Time up!
Time up? Really? I started stories. I'm going to pick. All right. I guess I missed that on a technicality now. The game is wide open all of a sudden now.
The game is open, and it's anybody's game right now. And you already.
What was the correct answer?
We try not to say so that people can go and get the African memory game. And I need to say at this point that the African memory game that's sponsoring this edition, this segment, is actually giving us quizzes to give out. They're going to give us so winners are going to get free boxes that you can play these games at home or wherever you are.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But if you don't win, go to the AfricanMemoryGame.com and buy yours. So, Miss Isaac, you have a chance now.
I'll go with number 2.
Number 2 is taken.
Oh, sorry. 4.
Number 4. We already talked about this city. Windhoek, capital of Namibia, was previously known as Igams. And this word Igams means what? A, hot springs. B, cold water.
I'll go with A.
And that is correct. So now, Olu, you have a chance to go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
What number do you want?
Well, I think she went with 4. I'll just go with 6.
Number 6. Even this was one of the ones I didn't know. Port Louis is the capital of Mauritius, an island on the what ocean? A, Atlantic Ocean. B, Indian Ocean.
Okay, so Mauritius is northwest. What were the options again?
Atlantic Ocean or Indian Ocean? You have less than 10 seconds left.
Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, wrong. So, Mark, you have a chance of winning this.
No pressure.
What number do you want?
I'm going to switch it up a bit. I'll take number 10, please.
Number 10. And I think you've been to this country. I'm not sure.
I hope so. Maybe that. Okay.
Who was the first president of Senegal? A. The look on Kirstie's face almost made me pass out. A. Sédar Senghor. B. Abdul Diouf.
I'm going to go with A, Senghor.
And that is correct.
Oh, thank God.
And right now, Mark is leading with 2 points. And I think the reason why he's leading is because he lives in the continent. Because he lives in Kenya. And
I can't wait to go to Senegal. I've actually never been.
So everybody has one question left. And it's still pretty much It could be a tie. It could be a win for Mark. Let's see. There's number 8, there's number 11, and there's number 12. So, Miss Isaac, what number do you want?
I'll go with 11.
Number 11. What is the longest river in Central Africa? A, the Nile. B, the Congo.
I'll go with the Congo.
The Congo, and that is correct. So, this is getting really tight. Only you have between 8 or 12. Whatever you don't take is what Mark takes. So, pick one. 8 or 12.
Okay. Let's see. Maybe 12.
Number 12. Who were the first Europeans to explore? And I changed the question to exploit, actually. But the question actually said to explore Africa. But I put to exploit Africa. A, the Portuguese. B, the French.
Well, I know the French really delved into Africa, but I know the Portuguese too were part of this, so I'll go with Portugal.
Portuguese is correct. Wow, this is serious now. Mark, question number 8. Who was the first president of the Ivory Coast? And if you get this, you're the winner. A, Felix Houphouët-Boigny. B, Laurent Gbagbo.
First president.
Yes, first president of the Ivory Coast. Felix Boigny or Laurent Gbagbo.
I'm going to go with A.
And that is correct.
Wow.
That is
correct.
They don't call you a digital storyteller for nothing. I guess, I need to come and do an internship with you to get this many questions about Africa. But that has been a very fantastic session. I really thank you all for playing, for participating.
You're welcome.
And please keep impacting Africa. Please keep, engaging Africa. And there's no way we can engage Africa without understanding and knowing the continent. And if we don't do this, how will we know who we're serving? So go to the africanmemorygame.com and get yourself one of the boxes and let your kids, let your friends know about Africa. And let's be more informed Africans. So thank you all for playing. And thank you, Mark, for coming. Thank you, Emma from London. Thank you, Kirstie. Thank you, Ibuku. Thank you, DJ Mike Phillips. And thank you, everybody who is watching, listening. To my mom in Nigeria, I know you're watching. So thank you so much for watching. And until next week when we meet again, please keep impacting Africa. Good morning.
Good morning. Bye.
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 Support for Impact Africa comes from Our Financial Coach, ranked among America's 11 best financial coaches on the web at ourfinancialcoach.com. United 4Kids Foundation, committed to healing the world one child at a time. On the web at united4kidsfoundation.org. Frad Consulting, planning and designing services where you are always in good company. On the web at fradconsulting.com. And from Outside in HR, pointing great companies to the future of successful HR. On the web at outsideinhrng.com. And from Wiser Advisory, Africa's leading financial advisory, training and outsourcing services firm. On the web at wiseradvisory.com. And from Nextier, the leading public sector advisory firm focused on agriculture, power, and petroleum. On the web at nextierlimited.com. And from Data Century Limited. And from Total Ascent, empowering individuals and organizations to achieve their educational and career goals. On the web at total-ascent.com. And from Brave Little Heroes, helping kids discover their inner awesome. On the web at bravelittleheroes.com. To support Impact Africa, please visit our website, impactafricaonline.com. Thank you for tuning in to Impact Africa. Please join us again next Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. GMT at listenvisionlive.com. Have a good week and keep impacting Africa.